Hey Indian Creek 8th grade students, it's Professor Blazek and I'm here in this video to bring you another grammar lesson and we are going to be talking about subject-verb agreement in this video. So first of all, you might be wondering, what is subject-verb agreement? What exactly does that mean? So when you're writing, the subject and the verb of every sentence must agree in number. And when I say number, I mean that if you have a singular subject, one person, one thing, you must use a singular verb. And on the other hand, if you have a plural subject, so more than one person or thing or idea, you have to use a plural verb. And it's very important that your subject and verb agree, because otherwise your writing just doesn't make very much sense. It can leave a reader confused, and it really is not putting your best foot forward in terms of writing. So just as we did when we were working on finding subjects and verbs, when you're looking for agreement, find the verb first and then the subject. Look at each one, decide if they are singular or plural. If they do not agree, if one is singular and one is plural, then one must be changed to make your sentence correct. So looking at these example sentences, there are either two subjects or two verbs in each sentence, and as you read through, you should be able to pick out the correct one that matches the number in terms of the subject or verb that's already given. So if you look at the first sentence, it says the penguins slide or slides across the ice. Penguins is a plural subject, so you want the plural verb of slide. In sentence number 2, we have my dog or dogs jump every time I come in the room. Jump is a plural verb, so you want the plural subject of dogs. In sentence number 3, the car has or have a fully furnished interior. Car is a singular subject, so you want the singular verb of has. In the fourth sentence, we have we is or are working on a project for science class. We is a plural subject, talking about more than one person, so you want the plural verb of are. We are working on a project for science class. And then in the final sentence, it's he or they thinks it is a bad idea. The verb is thinks, and that is a singular verb, so we want a singular subject of he. He thinks it is a bad idea. So for most of these, you could probably just read each sentence with either subject or verb, with both options, and most of the time you can probably just tell which one is correct because it just sounds right. But there are certain cases where you want to be careful of the either singular or plural subject or verb that you're using, and we're going to talk about some of those examples coming up. So if there is a phrase or clause that follows a subject, it does not affect the number of the subject. And sometimes these clauses that usually give extra information about a subject, they can be a little bit confusing, but just remember to look at only the subject, decide if it's singular or plural, and then you will know if you need a singular or plural verb. So some examples, we have the first sentence says the distance to the basket is 15 feet. You can tell that the subject is distance because you could cut out to the basket and the sentence would still make sense. The distance is 15 feet. So because distance is a singular subject, you want the singular verb of is. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the subject is distance. And then if you look at our second sentence, it says, my mother, who has written 3 novels, enjoys teaching students about writing. You can tell that mother, the subject, is singular, so you want the singular verb of enjoys. The extra clause, the who has written 3 novels, doesn't affect at all if you want a singular or plural verb to go along with your subject. So pretty self-explanatory, but just something to keep in mind when you're looking for subjects and verbs. That extra clause or extra phrase does not affect what verb or subject you use. Now I want to talk about indefinite pronouns as subjects because they can be a little bit confusing. So pronouns that do not refer to a specific thing, place, or person are called indefinite pronouns. The opposite of an indefinite pronoun would be a definite pronoun, which refers to a specific thing, place, or person. So examples of definite pronouns would be he or she or they or we, talking about specific people or things. But there are some pronouns that don't refer to these. They're called indefinite pronouns. And when an indefinite pronoun is the subject in a sentence, it must agree with the verb. So we're going to look at some example indefinite pronouns that are either singular, plural, or in some cases they can be both, and just depending on the situation, you must use either the singular or plural verb. Basically, you just ask yourself, is it referring to an entire group as one, in which case it's singular, or is it referring to the individual members of that group, in which case it would be plural? So in our first example sentence, we have everyone has or have a computer at home. So if you look at the table, everyone is one of our singular indefinite pronouns. So you want to use the singular verb of has. Okay, and if you think about it, everyone talking about each specific person, that's why it's a singular indefinite pronoun. In the second example sentence, we say few has or have a computer at home. Now, few is referring to a group of people. It's not a large group of people, but it is still more than one person. So you want to use a plural verb to match this plural indefinite pronoun, which would be have. Now in these next two sentences, we're going to show the different ways that certain indefinite pronouns can be either singular or plural depending on the situation. So in this third sentence, we have all of the cookies is or are baked. Now this indefinite pronoun, all, is referring to every one of the cookies, each one has been baked, so you want to use a plural verb to match this plural indefinite pronoun, so you would use are. And now in our fourth example sentence, we say all of the steak is or are grilled, and if you look, steak it's referring to a large amount of steak, probably multiple pieces, but steak itself is a singular noun, so you want to use the singular verb, which would be is. So you would say all of the steak is grilled. So that's just a difference. In the sentence before, we're talking about cookies, which is a plural noun, so you want to use a plural verb. In this fourth sentence, it's a singular noun, so you're using a singular verb. So that's just something to be careful when you're dealing with those indefinite pronouns. You can refer back to this table. There's another one in your textbook. And it's just something that with more practice, you will get more and more comfortable using the correct agreement between these indefinite pronouns and their verbs when they're used as a subject. So now I want to talk about compound subjects. And compound subjects are subjects that contain more than one noun or pronoun. So you could say me and my friend, my parents and my grandparents. It's a subject that contains more than one noun or pronoun. Now, if a compound subject is joined by and, it requires a plural verb unless the compound subject is only naming one thing. So we have two example sentences to look at. In the first one, we have the Knights and the Eagles is or are playing for the championship. Now, the Knights and the Eagles are two separate teams. They're joined by and, so they are both playing for the championship. So you want to use the plural verb of are. In the second sentence, we have pasta and garlic bread is or are my favorite meal. Now, pasta and garlic bread is our subject, but it is only one meal, even though it's a compound subject. So you want to use the singular verb to match the singular subject, which would be is. And if you read the sentence, that is exactly how it would make sense. So again, something that reading it will usually give you the right idea, but something, again, that with practice you will get better and better with using these compound subjects the correct way. Now, on the other hand, if a compound subject is joined by or nor, it depends on the number of the individual subjects. So if you have two singular subjects joined by or nor, they will take a singular verb because you're only talking about one. But plural subjects joined by or nor will take a plural verb because no matter what the subject is, it's still talking about more than one thing. So in the two example sentences we have, the first one, a pen or pencil is or are needed for the test. We have pen or pencil, both singular subjects, so you want the singular verb of is. On the other hand, we have the Knights or Eagles is or are winning the game. No matter which team it is that's winning the game, it's still a plural subject, so you want the plural verb of are. Now, in certain cases, you might have a singular subject and a plural subject that are coming together in a compound subject and joined by or nor. In these cases, which they are rare, but this is really where you can show off just how much you know about subject-verb agreement, the verb agrees with the subject that is nearer the verb. So in these two sentences, they are the exact same, except the individual subjects within the compound subject are flipped around. So in the first sentence, either my mom or my friends is or are giving me a ride. The plural subject of my friends is closer to the verb, so you would use the plural verb of are. So you'd say either my mom or my friends are giving me a ride. On the other hand, if you were to say either my friends or my mom is or are giving me a ride, now my mom, which is a singular subject, is closer to the verb, so you would use the singular verb of is. Either my friends or my mom is giving me a ride. Again, this is a tricky situation, but just keep in mind whichever one, if a compound subject is joined by or nor, whichever one is closer to the verb is the number that you use. So next we're going to talk about collective nouns being used as subjects. And a collective noun is a noun that names a group. So audience, team, batch, collection. It names a plural thing, but it is actually often a singular noun if it is referring to the group as a whole, but it's a plural noun if it's referring to the individual parts of that group. So in our two example sentences, if you were to say the class enjoys taking field trips, the class as a whole enjoys taking field trips, so you would use the singular form enjoys when you're using a verb. On the other hand, if you were to say the class are working on their projects, in this case you're talking about the individuals in a class, so you would use the plural form of are. Just another little trick when you're using collective nouns in choosing the right verb. So there are also some nouns that are plural in form that will actually take singular verbs. Some examples include electronics, mathematics, and news. These usually refer to a single idea or single class and therefore require a singular verb. So you would say mathematics is my favorite subject because you're talking only about one subject even though mathematics is plural. And you would also say the news begins at 6 o'clock p.m. because, again, news is just one broadcast of the news. So, again, just another little trick to remember. There are certain nouns that look plural but actually use singular verbs. So now I have a set of practice sentences for you to go over. Go ahead and pause the video now and try and select the correct verb, and then restart the video when you are ready for the answers. Okay, so number one, you would say the group of students has left the building. The subject of the sentence is group, which is singular because it's talking about the entire group, so you would use the singular verb of has. Number two, my vocabulary homework and mathematics problems take me hours to finish. This is a compound subject where it is joined by and, so you would use a plural verb. Number three, somebody among the students doesn't like reading. Somebody is one of those indefinite singular pronouns, so you would use the singular verb of doesn't. Number four, neither my mom nor my dad speaks Spanish. This is a compound subject joined by nor, but each of the subjects are singular, so you use the singular verb of speaks. Number five, there are several colleges recruiting me to play baseball. Pretty self-explanatory. And number six, science or mathematics is the best subject to study because both of those are singular subjects joined by or. So I hope this video has been very helpful in giving you an understanding of how to make sure your subjects and verbs agree We will continue to do more practice, and until then, this has been Professor Blazek signing off.